My girlfriend broke up with me over red flags that her best friend pointed to her. I said, okay. Weeks later, the same friend texted me, "You deserve better." And now my girlfriend is regretting listening to her and wants back. Sup, Reddit. So my girlfriend broke up with me after her best friend diagnosed me as a walking red flag. A few weeks later, guess who slid into my DMs? Buckle up. This one's pure gold. I, 27 male, work as a system analyst for a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. Pretty decent gig, good benefits, and I make enough to live comfortably. Before meeting Elena, 26 female, I was your typical introverted tech guy. Work, gym, video games, hanging with the boys, repeat. Nothing crazy. Got my own place at 24 after grinding through a soul-crushing entry-level IT job for 3 years. The kind where you're explaining to 50-year-old executives why they need to stop clicking on Nigerian prince emails. The apartment wasn't anything special, but it was mine, and I didn't have to explain to anyone why I needed a second monitor just for Discord. I had a killer setup though, triple monitors for gaming, a decent sound system that the neighbors probably hated, and enough space for my growing collection of mechanical keyboards. Yeah, I'm that guy. The one who spends way too much time debating the merits of Cherry MX Blues versus Browns on Reddit. Don't judge. My gaming rig was my pride and joy. A custom-built PC with an RTX 3080, 32 gigabytes RAM, and an overclocked i9 processor that could probably launch a small satellite if NASA asked nicely. I'd saved for months to build that beast, working overtime shifts explaining to the same executive why? No, the company VPN doesn't work at his beach house because he didn't actually connect to it. The PC sat on a custom desk I'd built myself from an old door and some industrial pipe fittings I found on Craigslist. DIY YouTube tutorials really coming through. Back then, my main game was this MMORPG called Ashen Veil. Invested thousands of hours into it. Was part of a top-tier raiding guild called Caffeine Commandos, with this dude Kevin, 28 male, who worked as a network engineer in Portland. We'd never met in person, but we'd been gaming together for almost 7 years at that point. Kevin was my raid leader and basically my online ride or die. Guy could tank boss mechanics while simultaneously giving life advice that was surprisingly solid for someone who called himself Legendary Beard online. He met Elena at a friend's housewarming party 5 years ago. She was super outgoing and somehow found my awkward jokes funny. No idea how I landed her, honestly. She was way out of my league. The kind of girl who somehow always looks put together even in sweatpants, actually enjoyed going to farmers markets on weekends, and could hold a conversation with literally anyone. We clicked right away. Different enough to keep things interesting, but similar where it mattered. The first couple years were solid. We moved in together after 18 months, adopted a rescue dog, German Shepherd mix named Rocket, and settled into a good routine. Rocket was an absolute unit. 85 pounds of fur and energy. Best wingman I ever had. Chicks dig a guy who rescues dogs, just saying. Though, during the years I had with Elena, there were some early signs I ignored. Like how Elena would constantly check her phone when we were together, or how she needed validation for literally every decision. Want to order pizza? Has gotta text 3 people first. Thinking about a weekend trip? Better run it by group chat. Should have seen the red flags, but you know how it is when you're caught up in the honeymoon phase. Elena had this best friend, Tara, 26 female, who she'd known since high school. Picture this 5 feet 3 inches with this hideous green hair that looked like algae growing on a forgotten pool. She'd change the shade every few weeks, as if the problem was the tone, and not the fact that she looked like a rejected Joker cosplay. She claimed it was her signature look, but really it screamed, "I'm a predator." They were tight, like talk every day, know each other's passwords tight. At first I thought it was cool she had such a close friendship, but Tara always gave off this weird vibe around me. Not openly hostile, just dismissive. Like whatever Elena and I had was temporary, and she was the permanent fixture. Tara was the type who was perpetually single, but somehow an expert on everyone else's relationships. She had this way of looking at me like I was some science experiment she was observing. And she'd do this thing where she'd cut me off mid-sentence to talk to Elena about something completely unrelated, as if I suddenly stopped existing. Little things started happening. Plans would suddenly change because Tara needs me. My opinions would get overruled because Tara says this restaurant is better. Tara started showing up unannounced at our apartment with emergency situations that were basically just her being bored or having minor relationship drama. I remember one night I'd scored last-minute tickets to this gaming convention I'd been hyped about for months. Paid extra for the VIP tickets, that included a meet and greet with the developers of this RPG I'd been following since the beta. Told Elena about it. She seemed excited. 2 hours before we're supposed to leave, Tara calls crying because her Hinge date ghosted her. Guess who had to go to the convention alone while my girlfriend spent the night eating ice cream and watching The Notebook with Tara? Ah, this guy. By convention night, my inbox was blowing up with messages from Elena asking for updates on the event while simultaneously sending me pictures of her and Tara's girls' night. Like, why even ask about my thing if you're clearly having the time of your life eating Ben & Jerry's and watching Ryan Gosling? I ended up meeting some cool people at the convention, and low-key had a better time without having to explain every gaming reference. But still, it set a pattern. Around year 3, things shifted. Tara went through a messy breakup with her boyfriend of 2 years. Dude finally got tired of playing second fiddle to her friendship with Elena. Can't blame him. After that, Tara's presence in our lives went from annoying to straight up invasive. My buddy Bobby, who'd hang with us sometimes, noticed it too. Bobby's that friend who calls out BS when he sees it, no filter. One night after Tara had crashed our date night for the 3rd time that month, he pulled me aside and was like, "Bro, you realize that girl's trying to sabotage you, right?" I brushed it off at the time, but Bobby wasn't wrong. Around this time, I'd also started hanging out with this guy, Marcus, 30 male, from my gym. He was this absolute unit of a dude who competed in amateur MMA fights on weekends and worked as a physical therapist during the week. We'd met when I nearly crushed myself under a bench press, and he saved me from certain embarrassment and possible death. After that, we started spotting each other regularly. Marcus had gone through something similar with his ex and her controlling mother. He'd come over some weekends for gaming sessions, and Elena always acted weird around him, like his presence somehow threatened her. I think it was because Marcus had this no BS attitude that made it hard for Tara's manipulation tactics to work when he was around. He'd call things out directly that most people would politely ignore. Like this one time, Tara happened to show up during our barbecue that she wasn't invited to, and Marcus straight up asked her, "Don't you have your own friends to hang out with?" Elena was mortified, but I nearly choked on my burger trying not to laugh. After that, Tara made sure to only surprise visit when she knew Marcus wouldn't be around. There was this one weekend when Elena and I planned a short camping trip to this spot up in the mountains. Just us, Rocket, and no cell service. Paradise, right? I'd spent weeks researching the perfect spot, bought a new tent, even splurged on those fancy freeze-dried meals that actually taste decent. The night before, Tara calls with some work crisis that somehow requires Elena's input, despite them working in completely different fields. Long story short, camping trip canceled, and I spent the weekend alone watching Tara's Instagram stories of her and Elena at some rooftop bar. The camping gear sat by the door like a sad reminder that I was clearly option. Irandam. The worst part wasn't even the canceled trip. It was how Elena acted like it was no big deal. She came home Sunday evening with a souvenir keychain for me, as if that somehow made up for ditching our plans. Tara started doing this thing where she'd check in on our relationship. She'd ask Elena these leading questions when I wasn't around. Does he really support your career goals? Or, don't you think it's weird he spends so much time gaming? Just planting these little seeds of doubt. And Elena, instead of shutting it down, started bringing these concerns home. Suddenly, my gaming hobby that had never been an issue was immature. My job that she used to think was cool was now not ambitious enough. My casual friendships with female coworkers became suspicious. What really got to me was how selective her memory became. Like how she'd forget that I was the one who encouraged her to go for that teaching certificate upgrade, or how I'd built her a custom website for her classroom parents for free, or how I'd wake up early on weekends to take Rocket out so she could sleep in. None of that counted anymore. It was all about how I didn't match up to whatever phantom ideal Tara had convinced her she deserved. I tried talking to Elena about Tara's influence, but she'd get defensive immediately. "She just wants what's best for me," or "you're being paranoid," were her go-to lines. Classic gaslighting. I started keeping a mental log of how often Elena's opinions would change after a night out with Tara. The pattern was obvious. I remember looking around at our apartment. The plants she'd insisted on buying that I watered religiously. The framed photos of us that I'd hung. The dog we'd adopted together who was currently curled up by my feet. I was wondering when I'd become an afterthought in my own relationship. That night, I logged into Ashen Vale and joined a voice chat with Kevin in our guild. I didn't vent or anything, just needed to kill some digital monsters. We were running this mega difficult raid that required perfect coordination. 6 hours of precise movements, split-second decisions, and intense focus. By the time we finally defeated the raid boss, It was 3 a.m. Kevin could tell something was up, though, because I didn't spiel much. After everyone else logged off, he stayed on. Rough day? He asked while we were sorting through the raid loot. I gave him the Cliff Notes version while we ran some easy dungeon quests. Kevin listened, then said, "Sounds like your relationship has a third player who's running cheat codes, man." And gaming metaphors aside, he was right. I'd spent 3 years trying to win a rigged game. Kevin suggested I should set some boundaries with Tara, but we both knew that was easier said in a Discord chat than done in real life. Later that week, my work buddy Diane, 34 female, noticed I seemed off during our lunch break. Diane was this badass senior security analyst who'd previously worked for the government doing stuff she couldn't talk about. She always wore these band t-shirts. Now look, I'm never the guy who vents especially for a girl, but Diane was like an older sister to me, and I thought I'd like to get advice from a female to see if I was doing anything wrong. So when I reluctantly explained the situation with Elena and Tara, she just shook her head and said, "Classic triangulation." According to Diane, what Tara was doing was textbook manipulation, creating artificial competition, manufacturing conflicts, then positioning herself as the solution. Diane suggested I observe the pattern over a few weeks. Data doesn't lie, she said. Once you see it mapped out, the decision becomes obvious. She was treating my relationship problems like a security breach, which was weird, but oddly helpful. Or then the final straw came last month. I came down with a nasty flu. 102 fever, couldn't keep food down, the works. It hit on a Thursday, and Elena was supposed to go to some weekend wine tasting trip with Tara and their other friend Jen that they'd planned for months. The timing was brutal. I'd been pulling 14-hour days on this massive project, the kind where you're living on caffeine and takeout, staring at code until your eyes burn, and dreaming in firewall protocols. Pretty sure my immune system just gave up after the third consecutive night of energy drinks and takeout. By Thursday morning, I was a walking petri dish of germs. My fever was so high, I couldn't tell if the weird shadow people I kept seeing in the corner of the bedroom were hallucinations or actual intruders. That's how bad it was. I never ask for help when I'm sick. I'm not that guy. But this was bad, and I could barely get to the bathroom without feeling like I was going to pass out. So I asked Elena if she could maybe postpone the trip by a day until I was a bit more stable. She seemed cool with it at first, even called Tara to reschedule. But an hour later, Elena came into our bedroom looking all conflicted and said, "Tara says I shouldn't have to miss the trip just because you're sick. She says you're a grown man and can take care of yourself." I was literally shaking with fever at this point, and Elena was standing there telling me her friend thought I was being manipulative by being sick. I just said, "Do whatever you want," and turned over. She left the next morning while I was sleeping. The cherry on top? She took the good thermometer and all but one roll of toilet paper. Because apparently when you're battling between life and death, you should also have to play the "how many squares can I get away with using" game. My buddy Carlos ended up coming by to check on me after I texted him. Carlos is that friend everyone needs. The reliable one who doesn't ask questions, just shows up. Brought me soup, Gatorade, and hung out for a few hours to make sure I didn't die. Real bro move. He even took Rocket out for me since the poor dog had been cooped up with my sick ass all day. Kevin from my guild also came through in his own way. When I messaged that I couldn't make our scheduled raid because I was dying of flu, he organized a virtual sickbed entertainment squad. 5 of our guildmates took turns streaming different games on Discord for me to watch when I was too weak to play, but too feverish to sleep. One guy even streamed himself speed-running Dark Souls while doing commentary specifically to cheer me up. These were dudes I'd never met in person, living in different time zones, rearranging their schedules to distract a sick stranger. Gamers get a bad rap, but that's brotherhood right there. Carlos didn't say much about Elena leaving, but I could tell by his face what he thought of it. He just sat there, controller in hand, letting me destroy him in Smash Bros, even though we both knew I was playing like garbage due to the fever. That's friendship right there. Marcus stopped by the next day with a protein shake recipe he swore would flush the virus out of my system. It tasted like battery acid, but I drank it anyway. He also brought over some kind of menthol rub that his MMA coach used for muscle recovery. And when Elena got back Sunday night and saw I was better, she acted like nothing happened. Didn't even ask how I managed while she was gone. Instead, she spent 2 hours showing me wine tasting photos and telling me how Tara got hit on by the vineyard owner's son. Great. That's definitely what someone recovering wants to hear about. I just sat there, watching her scroll through endless pictures of glasses and vineyard selfies. 2 days after the flu incident, Elena was distant, constantly on her phone, giving one-word answers, the whole cold shoulder routine. I figured she was still mad about the weekend somehow, so I gave her space. That Friday, I came home from work to find her sitting at the kitchen table looking serious. She hit me with, "We need to talk." She launched into this rehearsed sounding speech about how she'd been reflecting on our relationship and had recognized some concerning patterns. Straight up used the phrase red flags multiple times. Said I was controlling because I'd asked her to stay home when I was sick. Said I was isolating her from friends because I'd mentioned Tara's constant presence was affecting our relationship. It was like watching someone read from a script they didn't fully understand. She kept using these buzzwords that I'd never heard her say before: emotional labor, toxic masculinity, codependency. Terms that sounded exactly like the pop psychology crap Tara was always posting on her Instagram. It was like listening to Tara through Elena's mouth. When I pointed this out, she got super defensive and said, "Not everything is about Tara. These are my feelings." Dot. Ear. Then she dropped the bomb. She needed space to reevaluate and wanted me to move out for a while. Our apartment that we both paid for. I laughed and said, "That's not how this works. If you want space, you can go stay with Tara." She started crying, saying I was being difficult, and this just proved her point about me being toxic. I was too stunned to even argue. Just packed a bag and went to Carlos's place for the night to clear my head. By morning, she texted that she wanted to make this break permanent and would arrange to get her stuff while I was at work. Just like that, 5 years down the drain, because her friend convinced her I was a walking red flag. I'm not gonna lie, I sat in my car outside the office for a good 20 minutes that morning, just staring at that text. 5 years of building a life together, erased with a single message. And she couldn't even be bothered to do it in person. Just a text, like I was some random Tinder date she was ghosting. The next 2 weeks were rough. I threw myself into work, hit the gym hard, and tried not to think about the last 5 years of my life imploding. I let Elena take whatever belonged to her from the apartment. I just wanted a clean break. Bobby helped me set up a new gaming station in what used to be our reading nook, and Carlos brought over his spare TV since Elena had taken the living room one. We ordered food, played COD until 3 a.m., and for a few hours. Our Marcus contributed to the apartment remodel by helping me mount a pull-up bar in the hallway and bringing over some weights. Physical exertion is the best therapy, he insisted, while demonstrating proper form. Within a week, my living room had transformed into a hybrid gaming workout space that Elena would have hated. The gaming PC now sat near a set of dumbbells, yoga mat, ironically one Elena had left behind, and a heavy bag hanging from a reinforced ceiling mount that Marcus installed without asking if I wanted it. Kevin and the online squad kept me distracted during late nights when the silence felt too heavy. We started a new campaign in Ashen Vale, creating fresh characters and tackling the hardest dungeons. The guild even gifted me this legendary sword that normally takes months of grinding to acquire. Finding out she'd taken half my sock drawer but left all her bathroom products was a special kind of torture. Nothing says I'm over you like having to use your ex's lavender-scented shampoo for 2 weeks because you're too busy to go shopping. The weird thing about breakups is how they mess with your routine. Suddenly, all these little habits you built around another person are pointless. I still woke up early to make coffee for two. Still caught myself buying her favorite snacks at the grocery store. Then, when I was starting to get my head straight, Elena messaged, just checking how I was doing. Then another asking if I'd found her yoga mat. Then one saying she missed Rocket, who stayed with me since I was the one who actually walked and fed him daily. I kept responses minimal. Fine. No yoga mat here. Rocket's good. But then the texts got more frequent. She'd bring up inside jokes and send pictures of our memories. I left it on scene. 3 weeks after the breakup, she called. Said she'd maybe reacted too quickly. Said she missed what we had and thought we should talk about trying again. I asked point blank if she'd discussed this with Tara. Long pause. Then, this isn't about Tara. That told me everything I needed to know. I just said, "I'm good, thanks," and hung up. Blocked her number right after. Found out later from a mutual friend that Tara had temporarily moved to Boston for a 6-week work project, which explained Elena's sudden interest in reconciliation. The second the puppet master left town, she wanted her backup plan, me, reinstated. Hard pass. The thing is, I wasn't even mad anymore. Just tired of competing with a friendship that was clearly unhealthy. Tired of wondering if I was the problem when deep down I knew I wasn't. Sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is just walk away. Now what happened was the most unexpected shit. A week after blocking Elena, I got a Facebook message from Tara, of all the people in the world. "Hey, I know we've had our differences, but I wanted to check how you're doing. Elena told me you guys talked, and I think she handled everything really badly. You deserved better than that." I almost choked on my coffee. This woman, who'd spent years trying to sabotage my relationship, was now sliding into my DMs pretending to care. She continued messaging. I've always thought you were a really stand-up guy, actually. Elena never appreciated what she had with you. Then the kicker. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime? I've always felt like we never really got to know each other properly. It clicked instantly. Tara had wanted Elena single so she could have all her attention, but now Elena was probably moping around, talking about missing me 24/7. And Tara, being the narcissist she is, couldn't handle not being the center of attention. So her new play was to try and get with me to really twist the knife for Elena. The messages kept coming, getting more flirtatious with each one. She even sent a selfie just to say hi that conveniently showcased her cleavage. It was so transparent, I almost felt bad for her. I screenshotted her messages and sent them to Bobby and Carlos with the caption, "The audacity of this woman knows no bounds." Carlos replied with a gif of Michael Jackson eating popcorn. Bobby sent back, "Time to go scorched earth." I shared the screenshots with Kevin during our late-night gaming session, and he immediately went into tactical mode. "This is like that boss fight where the enemy suddenly switches sides when they're losing," he said while we were raiding. Classic trap scenario. The guild started plotting various revenge strategies, like we were planning a raid boss takedown. Some suggestions were wildly impractical. Mail her a glitter bomb, but a few had potential. I also showed Diane the messages during lunch break. Her eyes narrowed as she scrolled through them. "This is a classic human manipulation tactic," she said, using her intelligence community jargon. "She's attempting to flip you as an asset against your ex." Diane started sketching out what she called a counter-intelligence operation on a napkin, complete with contingency plans and extraction scenarios. I'm pretty sure she was enjoying this way too much. And after consulting with my surprisingly invested support network, I decided to have some fun with it. "You know what? You're right. We should definitely talk. There's this new cafe downtown, supposed to be really good." I showed up 10 minutes early and got a table with a good view of the entrance. Tara walked in looking way more done up than I'd ever seen her for casual coffee. Hair done, makeup on point, low-cut top. The works. She spotted me and smiled, heading over. As she approached the table, I stood up, along with Carlos, Bobby, and Jen, Elena and Tara's friend, who'd apparently gotten tired of Tara's BS too. The look on her face was priceless. Pure confusion, then panic. "What's this?" she asked, trying to keep her cool. I smiled. "Oh, I thought we could make it a group thing. Since you've always been such a fan of inserting yourself into other people's business, figured you'd appreciate the same courtesy." Your Carlos was filming discreetly on his phone as I continued. "These folks have been curious about something. See, I've been telling them how you spent years trying to sabotage my relationship, then tried to hit on me the second it ended. They didn't believe anyone could be that shameless, but here you are, proving me right." Tara went from pale to red in seconds, started sputtering about how I was twisting things, and this was completely inappropriate. Jen stepped in then. "Cut the crap, Tara. You did the same thing with my ex Tom after you convinced me he was holding me back, then tried to date him 2 weeks later." Tara grabbed her purse and practically ran out of the cafe. The four of us ordered coffee and spent the next hour swapping Tara horror stories. Turns out she'd pulled this stunt with multiple friends' relationships over the years. The best part? Carlos sent the video to Elena with a simple text. "Thought you should see who you picked over your boyfriend of 5 years." Jen had her own receipts too. Screenshots of Tara talking trash about Elena to other friends, complaining about how codependent she was getting with me. It was a whole treasure trove of two-faced behavior that Jen had been collecting for months. Why she waited until after Elena and I broke up to share this info is beyond me. But better late than never, I guess. Later that night, Carlos, Bobby, and I were playing Call of Duty when Bobby's phone blew up. It was his girlfriend sharing that Tara had posted a self-pitying Instagram story about fake friends and toxic men, with sad music in the background. We made it into a game, taking a shot of soda every time she posted a new story. By midnight, we were thoroughly hydrated and had turned it into a proper gaming tournament. Vague quote about betrayal. Drink soda. Black and white filter. Drink soda. Song about being misunderstood. Finish your soda. The crowning achievement came 2 days later when I was at the gym with Marcus and ran into Tara's ex, the one before she went nuclear on Elena and me. We'd never really talked before, but he recognized me, and we ended up grabbing protein shakes after our workouts. Swapped war stories for an hour. Turns out she'd been trying the same manipulative crap with him too. This guy, Ryan, had been dating Tara for almost 3 years, before the Elena friendship destroyed everything. He showed me old text messages where Tara would literally schedule their date nights around Elena's availability just in case she needs me. The parallels were uncanny. Ryan and I ended up exchanging numbers. The guy was cool, and he joined our next gaming session that weekend. Dude turned out to be a surprisingly good sniper in our team battles. Kevin immediately dubbed him Fellow Survivor, which became his permanent username in our Discord. LOL. I spent that weekend in an epic 48-hour gaming marathon with Kevin and the guild, completing an ultra-rare achievement that less than 0.1% of Ashen Veil players had managed to unlock. We live-streamed the final boss battle on Twitch, and somehow word got around. At peak viewership, we had over 300 people watching, including several of Elena and Tara's mutual friends. The stream chat was blowing up when we finally defeated the legendary dragon Azure Maw the Infinite. Damn, it felt good. So it's been 2 months since the cafe showdown. Heard through Jen that Elena and Tara had some massive falling out. Elena tried reaching out again, sent a long apology text about how she'd been manipulated and missed us. Too little, too late. 5 years is a long time to let someone else call the shots in your relationship. The thing is, I don't even hate Elena. I just feel sorry for her. She let herself be puppeted by someone who never had her best interests at heart, and by the time she realized it, she'd burned the one bridge that actually mattered. That's its own kind of punishment. The last time I saw Elena was running into her at Target. I was in the electronics section checking out headsets when I spotted her in the aisle. Before I could walk away, she approached me, all teary-eyed, asking if we could talk. I just gestured to my shopping cart, which contained a frozen pizza, a 6-pack of energy drinks, and a copy of Elden Ring. This is who I am, Elena. The guy you thought wasn't ambitious enough, was too immature, and had too many red flags. And I'm happier now than I've been in years. Then I walked away while she stood there stunned. Boss move, if I do say so myself. As for me, I'm actually doing better than expected. The apartment feels more like mine now. Painted the living room a dark blue that Elena always vetoed. Bought that gaming chair I always wanted. Set up a proper home office instead of working from the dining table. Turns out, not having someone constantly judging your decisions is pretty freeing. Rocket seems happier with just one human to focus on. He's got a new routine now. Morning runs with me, afternoon naps in the sunspot by the window, and evening cuddle sessions while I game. Living his best doggo life. Work gave me a promotion last month because I'd been crushing it. My boss actually pulled me aside and said he'd noticed a positive change in my leadership skills. Carlos and Bobby were still with me through all of this. We started a weekly poker night at my place. Something Elena always complained was too loud when I suggested it before. Started seeing someone new recently. Alex, 27 female. She's a software engineer I met at a conference. Super independent, has her own friends and hobbies, and actually thinks it's cool when I game occasionally. I knew right then she was a keeper. And not only that, turns out she is also a gamer. She's competitively ranked in 3 different fighting games and streams on Twitch twice a week to a modest but dedicated following. First night we hung out, we ended up in an impromptu Street Fighter tournament on my couch that lasted until 3 a.m. She absolutely destroyed me in 9 out of 10 matches while explaining advanced combo techniques I didn't even know existed. Kevin and the guild immediately adopted her into our Ashen Veil raids after she guest starred on one of my sessions and casually optimized our entire resource management strategy. 2 weeks in, and she'd already risen to officer status in the guild hierarchy. Diane and Alex hit it off immediately when they met at a company mixer. Turned out they both had backgrounds in competitive martial arts. Diane in Krav Maga, Alex in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now they train together twice a week at this MMA gym downtown. Alex is nothing like Elena, in the best ways possible. She's straightforward, doesn't play games, and actually communicates. Plus, she's got this dry sense of humor that constantly catches me off guard. Last week, she completely destroyed me in Mario Kart and didn't even try to pretend she wasn't competitive about it. It's refreshing. Last weekend, we went hiking up in the mountains. The same trail Elena and I never made it to. We're taking things slow. We've both been burned before. Both value our independence. And wait, I didn't finish. Last month, I finally met my online friend, Kevin. Kevin, my raid leader and online friend of 7 years, announced he was coming to Seattle for a tech conference. We finally met in person at this burger joint downtown. Weird experience meeting someone you've talked to almost daily for years, but never actually seen face to face. He was shorter than I expected, but otherwise exactly the personality I knew from our late-night gaming sessions. Kevin, Alex, Carlos, Bobby, Marcus, Diane, and I ended up having a party at my place that weekend. For hours, my apartment was filled with trash talk, competitive button mashing, and genuine laughter. At one point, I looked around the room at this random assortment of people who'd become my gang and realized something important. Losing Elena had somehow given me a better social circle than I'd ever had before. The whole experience taught me to trust my gut. When someone shows you who they are through small actions early on, believe them. And never date someone who outsources their thinking to a toxic friend. Your life's too short for that BS. Next week, Kevin's flying back to Seattle for another visit, and we're planning a massive LAN party at Marcus's place. Alex and I are moving in together next month. Found a place with an extra bedroom we're converting into a dual gaming setup. Life moves on, and sometimes it gets better than you could have imagined. Or